I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about your feeling responsible for what ended up happening to Rosie and when she was put down. Okay? Do you think you can talk about that with me? Okay. I want to show you something that I've drawn on this piece of paper here. And as you can see, I call this the responsibility pie. And I want you to think about that this whole circle represents all of the responsibility or blame involved for what happened to Rosie, the fact that Rosie got put down. Okay? Of all the people in the world that you can think of, who do you think has any responsibility at all, even if it's just a little, has some responsibility for what happened to Rosie?
Me.
Okay, so Lucy. Anybody else?
The dog.
The dog, Rosie. Anybody else?
No.
Well, what about Rosie's owners? Do you think that Rosie's owners have some responsibility for how Rosie behaves?
Yeah.
Okay. So how about if I just put down like Anna's mom or Anna's parents or something like that? Okay. Anna's parents. Okay. Can you think of anybody else who might be responsible for what happened to Rosie?
No.
Okay. All right. Well, here's what I'd like you to do. I would like on this pie right here for you to take the pen and draw like the size of the piece of pie that corresponds to how much responsibility Lucy has for what happened to Rosie, how much responsibility Rosie has for what happened to Rosie, and how much responsibility Anna's parents have. Okay? So go ahead and make 3 pieces of pie and use the whole pie. So how much for Lucy, how much for Rosie, and how much... Okay, so there are your 3 pieces of pie. And who does this one belong to?
The Rosie.
Rosie. Okay, so this is for Rosie. And that's a pretty big piece, but it's not the biggest. And there's a small piece here. Who does the small piece belong to?
Anna's parents.
Anna's parents. Okay. Well, that leaves this really big piece, and you're the only name that's left. So, does your name go in there? Okay. All right. So now you've given yourself, gosh, that's a lot of responsibility, more than half of the responsibility for what happened to Rosie. And that's what you think right now, right? Okay. Well, what I want to do today is talk a little bit about that feeling of responsibility that you have. A minute ago, you said that you felt responsible because you went over into Rosie's yard to play with Rosie. Have you done that before?
Yes.
Okay. Once or twice or a lot of times?
A lot.
A lot of times. Has Rosie ever growled at you before?
Yes.
Okay, she did growl at you before. Has she ever bitten you before?
No.
No. Okay. So, have you been around other dogs besides Rosie before?
Yes.
Okay. Has any dog ever growled at you besides Rosie?
Yes.
Okay. Have those dogs bit you before?
No.
Okay. So I guess what you're saying is, and correct me if I'm wrong here because I'm trying to understand, that Rosie growled at you before the day she bit you, and she growled at you the day she bit you, but somehow you should have known on the day that she bit you that growling meant she wasn't herself and that she was about to bite you. Can you explain that to me? Why? What was there special about that day?
Like, I noticed that her food bowl, she didn't eat a lot.
Okay.
She usually eats a lot by that time.
Okay.
She didn't run up to me when I came in.
Mm-hmm.
And she just wasn't herself.
She just wasn't herself. Does that, just the fact that she wasn't herself, does that mean that she was going to bite you? Or does that mean maybe she was sick to her stomach?
I don't know.
Don't know? Okay. So, do you think that if someone else had walked into the yard that day, let's say me, or maybe your mom had walked into the yard that day, would I have done anything different?
No.
Probably not. Okay. And Rosie growled, but she's growled at you before, and she didn't eat her food. And usually she eats, but usually means not all the time. Okay. So I guess I'm struggling to understand why there was something special about what you did that makes it your fault that the dog bit you. Did you poke the dog?
No.
Did you tease the dog?
No.
Did you pinch or hurt the dog somehow?
No.
Okay. So did you do anything to provoke the dog? No. Okay. So it seems like the dog was maybe having a bad day. Do you have, are you a veterinarian? I didn't think so. Do you have special abilities like Dr. Doolittle to communicate with dogs? No. Okay. How is it that you were supposed to know then that Rosie's growling and kind of unusual behavior meant, oh, she's going to bite me today?
I don't know.
Don't know. Well, what I'd like to try now is, I actually kind of thought ahead a little bit for a change, and I made a second responsibility pie. And I kind of wanted you to do the same thing again. And after we've talked, I'm wondering if it's changed any of the way that you think about the responsibility for Rosie having to be put down and for Rosie's biting you. So I'm going to list the names again here. Lucy, Rosie, and Anna's parents. And I would like you to, again, draw pieces of pie that correspond to the responsibility that you think you have, that Anna's parents have, and that Rosie has. Okay. Well, those pieces look a little bit different than before. Okay. So I'm going to need some help in terms of figuring out which piece goes with which person. Which one of these belongs to the dog? That one. Okay, so that's Rosie. That seems a little bit bigger than the piece for Rosie before. And which one of these belongs to Anna's parents? Okay, and that's definitely bigger than the one from before. And so that leaves this one, and by process of elimination, Lucy goes in here, right?
Right.
Okay. That looks like it's a little bit smaller than the piece before. Why did you give yourself a little bit less responsibility this time?
Because if Anna's parents knew that the dog didn't be herself, that they shouldn't have put her outside.
Right. Okay.